SpongeBob SquarePants is a show with some of the highest highs and lowest lows that I've ever seen in a series. Because the show is most associated with high-quality episodes, lower-quality episodes leave a taste in people's mouths that are worse than the nasty patty. While a lot of disliked episodes deserve their sordid reputation, there is one maligned SpongeBob episode that I think might be a little undeserving of its infamy. I am talking about The Best Day Ever. So the premise of The Best Day Ever is that SpongeBob wants to quote-unquote have a best day ever. It's a pretty universal and relatable concept. The term happiest day of your life is probably something everyone has heard. SpongeBob sings the opening song where he walks his way up to the roof of his pineapple where Gary is stuck up there for some reason, and relays his plans for his best day ever, which include working at the Krusty Krab, karate with Sandy, jellyfishing with Patrick using a special new jellyfishing net, and attending Squidward's clarinet concert. So this premise is where the first common criticism of this episode comes in. All of these things, with the exception of Squidward having a concert, are things that SpongeBob does all the time. But that's the point. Yeah, most people's idea of their best day ever would be their wedding or a trip to Paris or something. But if SpongeBob did either of those things as his best day ever, that would be kind of out of character. SpongeBob is by his nature optimistic and sees the best in his life. So by having his definition of his best day ever be a day packed with the things he already loves doing, that's not too unbelievable if you know the character. And it's a more unorthodox take on the idea of a perfect day. I do think that perhaps the writers could have done a little more with the Krusty Krab element of SpongeBob's best day ever. The jellyfishing involves a special new net, and karate with Sandy involves a new glove, so those things are a little more special. But with the Krusty Krab, he literally just says, I'm gonna go work at the Krusty Krab. And I know he loves it, but it's his job, It's weird to have your job be a part of your best day ever. If they tweaked it just a little bit, like saying that maybe a Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy convention rented out the restaurant, and SpongeBob is tasked with making 500 Krabby Patties and gets to serve them dressed as Mermaid Man, that would have definitely made the Krusty Krab seem like a bigger deal. Regardless of how that change could have improved the episode, I really don't take issue with SpongeBob's definition of the best day ever, especially because each activity involves the other four main characters and highlights SpongeBob's relationship to them. So the main conflict of the best day ever is that all four things that SpongeBob wants to do on his best day ever get interrupted in some way. The Krusty Krab is infested with nematodes, so instead of cooking his favorite burgers, he has to do that nose whistle thing he does in the intro to lure the nematodes away, ironically playing the Best Day Ever song while his best day ever is being ruined. Then Sandy has a leak in her tree dome, which SpongeBob plugs up with his new karate glove. Starting to see the pattern here. Then Patrick breaks his jellyfish net, and then subsequently breaks SpongeBob's old net, so then SpongeBob has Patrick borrow his fancy new net and never gets a chance to use it. Okay, so this element is my first real criticism of the episode. While the Patrick scene does continue the pre-established pattern of SpongeBob finds a hiccup, finds a way to fix it, but sacrifices that element of the day, I do think that this part of the episode borders too much on being mean-spirited. Look, I know Patrick isn't supposed to be the perfect friend or anything, but him just using the net with no regard for SpongeBob drifts into him just being a straight-up bad friend, which isn't what people like to see out of our favorite pink sea star. SpongeBob is also kind of a pushover here too, just kind of being like, okay, it's my turn now, and then he never gets to use the net. So we got bad friend Patrick and pushover SpongeBob. Those are both versions of these characters that people do not like to see. Now, how could I fix this scene? Well, my first thought would be to have both SpongeBob and Patrick use the net, but then realize it's not as fun because they can't jellyfish together. But that wouldn't work, because it breaks the formula of the episode. SpongeBob is supposed to help each of his friends. Honestly, all they had to do was have Patrick use the net first, thus solving his problem, and then when he comes over to give it back for SpongeBob's turn, because he's Patrick, he trips and falls and accidentally breaks the new net like he broke the first two. This would have made Patrick's part of the story more consistent with Krabs and Sandy's, because with Krabs and Sandy, it wasn't their fault that their respective bad things happened. But Patrick actively chose to hog the new net, and I think that flies in the face of the very message this episode is going for. The whole point of the best day ever is that you can't have a best day ever, because life circumstances will get in the way. But the story focuses more on circumstances of the universe rather than choices of people, or, choices of sentient sea creatures and a squirrel. By allowing themselves to cynically write Patrick as a bad friend, probably because they felt they'd get more of a cheap laugh out of it, they harmed this message just a little bit. But the ending of this episode does tie it together quite well. When SpongeBob encounters Squidward crying about his broken reed, we as the audience assume that this is a repeat of the other three parts of the story. But then we see SpongeBob so determined to not let this ruin his best day ever that my guy rips out his tooth with his bare hands and replaces it as Squidward's reed. This is actually one of my favorite SpongeBob Squidward interactions because it's just not what their interactions are usually like. Instead of SpongeBob being an antagonistic force in Squidward's life, he's the one encouraging him and fixing his problems. Oh yeah, there's one other criticism people have of this part of the episode. Some say that it doesn't make sense that Squidward would ever play in a concert, and I don't know, I find that to be such a mean take. Like, okay, he's a fictional ornery octopus, so I guess it's easier for us to say, yeah, he sucks at clarinet. No one would ever watch him. He'll never achieve his dreams, loser. But like, come on guys, it's not like he's playing in the New York Philharmonic. It's a little concert hall. It's not that unbelievable that the guy could get one gig in his life. So once it seems that SpongeBob has saved his best day ever, he finds himself stopped at the door by the ticket guy. Oh ho ho, the ticket guy. I love this character. Even in just a few little scenes, he's such a great foil to SpongeBob. So SpongeBob does a few schemes to try and get into the concert without a ticket. It's this little typical cartoon sequence of SpongeBob trying escalatingly ridiculous plans only for them to backfire, and honestly, this all lands really well. Like, this is some really great cartoon comedy right here. As a kid, I found this sequence really frustrating because I just wanted to see SpongeBob get into this concert already, and as an adult, I still find it frustrating, but I realize that that is the exact feeling that they are trying to make us feel. You should feel frustrated in this scene because that's how SpongeBob feels, and if a story is able to make you actually feel what the protagonist is feeling, it has succeeded as a meaningful story. Then SpongeBob gets into the concert hall only to find that it's already over. So then he makes this big speech about how he was supposed to have his best day ever, to which he realizes that what really matters was how he helped his friends for the day. And it ends with Mr. Krabs paying for SpongeBob to give one big performance, which, like, I think that might be the nicest thing Krabs ever did for the guy. Don't think it fully makes up for selling his soul for 62 cents, but still, Krabs actually being willing to spend money on SpongeBob is a pretty nice way of showing how much he appreciates him. So all in all, Best Day Ever is a decently funny episode with a good story and a good message even despite a few minor flaws. It is important to acknowledge that this episode did not exist in a vacuum, and a big part of its infamous nature is not just due to the quality of the episode itself, but in how it premiered. Best Day Ever was an incredibly hyped up SpongeBob special. It aired at the end of a top 100 SpongeBob episodes, which many people think might have been rigged due to the abundance of subpar season 4 episodes taking up the higher slots, but that's a subject for another video. Make sure to subscribe. Because of this big event, I remember thinking, even though I was a kid when it came out, that this episode was a special. So I and many others were shocked when it turned out to be a regular 11-minute episode. The episode's story is also a little bit stunted due to the fact that the episode contains 2 full songs, which are both slightly different renditions of Best Day Ever. Since so much of the already short runtime is taken up by these songs, the story itself goes by quickly. Honestly, I think that they still did a good job with the story, even with that in mind, but I think the episode would have had a much more positive reception if it was in fact a 22-minute special with a little more elaboration on its main story. In a way, the reaction to the Best Day Ever episode from many disappointed fans is kind of a reflection of the story of Best Day Ever, the episode. You know, they have this whole big event and hype up this best episode ever, and then you watch it and it's not as good as you think. Like, that's literally the plot of the episode. Except, of course, life doesn't owe you a Best Day Ever. But in the way that this episode was advertised, I think we were promised maybe not a best episode ever, but probably something with a little more weight to it. Again, I think Best Day Ever is a good episode. I actually was surprised at how much I liked it when I revisited it. But other than its musical numbers, it really is just a regular episode. And I think that if the episode was treated as a regular episode, it might have been better received. Hey, you made it to the end of my Best Day Ever video. You know what that means? That means that you are the best viewer ever. Thank you so much. If you like this SpongeBob video, great news. I've made a bunch more. This one right here is about another episode of the show. Oh, and this one right here is about one of SpongeBob's video games. So I've got a lot for you to watch. But for this video, that's all for me. See you next time.